Hey there guys, Mark here from Soarfly Concepts, coming back at you with another tutorial on... Yeah, I'm like a real YouTuber now. Hey guys, coming back at you with something. Anyway, getting straight into the point. Today we're going to be discussing ramp lights, and I'm going to teach you sort of how to make them in SketchUp, and then import them into Model Converter X, and make it look good. So this here is my model for a ramp light, and you're probably thinking, that looks... well, that ain't right. Well, it kind of is right if we just go ahead and hide that. There we go, there's our ramp light model. So it's texture on top. I'm not too keen on that texture. This model's quite old. Yeah, so we'll just bring that back in. So what these are the sort of the light sources, as it were. So you're going to see these in the sim, and they're going to look like shiny, which is going to be fun. So this is our ramp light. I'm going to go through a little bit of its structure for you, so you're kind of aware how to make it. Ramp light, fairly simple to make. It's just one long pole that gets slightly thinner towards the end, and there's a structure at the top with a light source inside it. There you go. That's how you make a ramp light in SketchUp, at least. Looking at it, the ramp lights are usually about 5 to 8 meters to 10 meters high, depending on like what airport they're at. General aviation airports tend to have fairly short ramp lights. They're usually about 5 meters tall. Sort of more international airports, everything's sort of well above the buildings, so they're quite high. This one is actually 8 meters high, roughly. Made fairly simple, the sort of repeating red and white pattern there. There's a bit of shading on that particular pattern as well. Softened all the edges along the pole, so it looks like nice and round when it's actually just a 6-sided shape. Keep those polygon counts low. And there's nothing spectacular about these lights either, they just fairly simple shape, and they just attach using a little clip. So nice and easy to make, and if I wanted to, I could have brought everything around, could have made these go perfectly to right angles to this one, and brought another one around here, so it'll be sort of a 4-way light, as it were, so it'll illuminate in all directions. But no, we're going to focus on the one that illuminates just to the front. So that's what those are as well. If we bring them back in, these are just the flares attached to the bulbs. Sort of zoom in here, you can see this one here attached to the bulb, this one here attached to the bulb, attached to the bulb, and these are the flares themselves, so like the sparkly bits you can see on the bulbs, and this is the sort of flare, so any dust in the air, things like that, you're going to see the light actually illuminating the area around it in the air. So that's what those are. Now this ramp light also has a third part to it. So you've got the first model, obviously, you got the illumination at the top, and there's also an illumination on the ground. We unhide everything. There's our sort of sodium looking illumination on the ground. We're going to leave that as it is for now. We're going to get rid of that because I'm focusing on this. So I've already exported it, and I've already tweaked it in Model Converter X. This is how it's going to look when it's in the sim. And you're not really going to notice too much, but it doesn't quite connect, because all you're going to see is a massive bloom around here. So I'll just follow up with what I've done. So these textures weren't initially named these textures, they were actually named, if we go down here, this was named flare1.bmp. I've changed it to LM. It's just that black texture. That's all it is. It's just the one I had in SketchUp. And this one here is sort of ramp sodium.bmp as well. Again, just added the LM suffix on the end. So the way I've tweaked it is so they only show up at night, and they're nice and transparent. If I turn it to day, they disappear. So at night we can see them, and what I've done is I've applied the diffuse texture, which is transparent texture. If we look at that, that's literally all it is. It's just a see-through texture, made using a black square, pretty much, with an alpha map applied to it, so it's completely transparent. And I've got 2 of these textures, transparent texture 1 and transparent texture number 2. both the same. I've just named them differently so I can have separate entities to edit. Now if we go up the top here, I'll just work my way down of what I've done with this. So when you select transparent texture, you've got to make sure you put your night map texture in as well, and I've just used the original diffuse and put the underscore LM at the end. Now we go down here, allow bloom, yes I do. Allow emissive bloom, of course. Bloom material by copying, absolutely. Specular color, none. There is no specular color for this particular material. No shadow, absolutely true, and no Z right either, also true. Keep going down, and now we come to the important part, the destination and the source blend in the frame buffer blend tools. So what we've got is we've got the inverse source color and 1. Inverse source color gives us I don't actually know what it gives us, but you know it does the job, and you turn the source blend to 1. And that gives us the effect of the see-through sort of texture, gets rid of the black edges, and also gets rid of them during the day. So inverse source color, and 1 gives us that. Now I'm going to show you how to actually do it, so you guys can follow along. Now we're going to need a third transparent texture for this, so we'll go back into there. And we'll just copy and paste that. Just change the name, transparent texture 3. Okay, so this is how everything looks at night, and you can see there is a specular color on the base, and there's a specular color on these as well. Those are the first things to go, so let's tweak them straight away, but before we do, get rid of that color, we don't need it. There we are, and we'll export the model. Oh, nearly. What we'll do is save the texture, then export the model out. So DXT into the folder you wish. Okay, that's them saved, and we'll export that model out now. There's FSX, there's Challenger, and there. Shoot ramp light 2. Alright, that's exported. So shoot ramp light 2, we're going to bring that back in, and now we're going to start tweaking the model. The reason why we save it first is so we have an MDL version of the model. If we did all the tweaks from the SketchUp model, DAE, then Model Converter X may export correctly, things like that, but there might be some things that didn't apply properly. Hence why you want to save the model first, and then run your tweaks. So yeah, first off, we'll start by getting rid of that. It's not what we need. So here's all of our textures, and you can see what they look like. They're just a black background with the color in the middle. So let's get rid of things like that. So it's 0, 0, and 0, and that gets rid of that one. Easy way to do this, just copy that. There we go. So that's applied properly. Getting rid of our specular color, so it's not going to be shiny. And we're going to just go ahead and tweak those models now, tweak those parts of the model. So we'll start with the textures. It's no longer going to be called Flare 1, it's transparent texture. Now remember, it's going to shift around because it's not alphabetically correct anymore, so what used to be called Flare 1 is now transparent texture, so it's going to come down to the bottom. So click on transparent texture in here, and click on night map, and we'll apply, it was Flare 1, wasn't it? Yeah. So Flare 1 underscore LM. Okay, and we'll do the same for everything else. As you can see, I've added the underscore LM suffix to that. There we go. So this is what everything looks like during the day, and we need to change that really, because if the ramp light looks like this during the day, I don't think you want to be driving around with big black boxes all over your airport. So we're going to edit this. We can start at the top. So on transparent texture 1. We want this to emissive bloom, so yes, and we want this to be bloom by copying material. We don't want any shadows, and of course we don't want it to Z-write either. Now down to the frame buffer blend, we're going to be setting it to inverse source color and 1, and that gets rid of that during the day. And that's that done. Second one, exactly the same job. There we go. And that's that done as well. And the third one, this one's going to be slightly different because we don't want the sodium illumination to be so bright. So everything's going to be exactly the same apart from the bloom. And obviously we're going to be setting a Z bias at the bottom because it's on the floor. And we need to add some LODs on this as well, because by the time we get probably about here, as you can see, the lines are coming through that. Once we add the Z bias, that'll sort of extend that range a bit more. But with this being flat on the ground, and FSX is obviously a curved surface, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to A, correct the model, and B, we're going to need to add some LODs to sort of bring this up a bit, and then sort of make it disappear as you get further away. So I'm not going to get involved in that. What I'll do is I will add the LODs. I've already got a tutorial up about how to add LODs. I'm going to add mine. I'm just going to show you how they work before I export everything for you. So we'll come back to that in just a second, but this one is slightly different. We've got to add a slightly different frame buffer blend for it to look good. But everything else is still the same apart from the bloom. We're going to miss it out because we don't want the ground being bloomed. So Z-write, there is none of that. And no shadow as well. Okay, now it's going to be the same, invert source color, and we're going to change it to source color instead of 1. Now what that does, it darkens things down a bit. Okay, if we were to change it to 1, it's quite bright. We don't want that. We want it to be not as bright. Okay, so there we go. Now that's our ramp light there. Let's go ahead and just add the Z bias at the bottom. Just change that to 1. There we go. So that's everything there. And what I'll do is I'll show you the LODs that I've put into it. So bear with. Alright guys, so you would have just seen it as a jump cut, but what has actually happened is probably about an hour has passed, maybe less, I'm not sure, wasn't keeping track of time. But yep, I have completed all of the LODs for this particular ramp light, and which by the way involved editing every single version of the LOD in the same way as I've done here. So the main model is now LOD 300. We might change that in the future, who knows. But yeah, if we just sort of scroll through these, you can see what I've done. So 300, 200. Now you're not really noticing much difference here, but if I change it to that mode, so 300, there you go. Now you can see what the difference is. That base plate is now moving up and down as I go back between 3 and 200. And it will continue to go up till we get to there. And what that'll do is that'll negate the flickering when you're at altitude. And we get to 100, and that's the last one, then it disappears, leaving just a ramp light, and then the ramp light disappears at LOD 50. Okay, so that's everything there sorted. We go to nighttime. All of the night textures are correct. Let's go ahead and export that model. There we go. It is now ready to go into Flight Sim, so I will join you when Flight Sim has loaded. I'm going to put this into a library object, obviously. So, well, yeah, I guess I'll see you in a couple of minutes, and you'll see me in about 3 seconds. Oh yeah. God, I'm tired today. Okay, so ramp lights, there they are. Okay, so we've got ramp light 1 and ramp light 2. So the first one, obviously, is just our regular ramp light. We'll just sort of go down here so we can see it. And that's kind of how it looks. I think I might have bloom turned off, so let's check that out, shall we? Yeah, light bloom is turned off. turn it on. There we are. So that's how that's going to look. So that's something. So just pop that over here. You can see how that looks. Now there's no LEDs attached to this one, so that's how it's always going to look. And during the day, obviously, those illuminations are not going to be there. So we'll go for this one now. And we've actually got an illumination on the ground. Now you might want to make that ground spot a bit bigger, but it's completely personal preference. I don't mind it this size, but yeah, you might want to make it a bit bigger. So there we go. If we go further away, and if we put the thing up like that, you can see, obviously, it disappears. So let's pop that into place about here. Yeah, let's add to another file, pop it into add-on scenery. And we'll call it ramps. Ramp lights. There we go. Now I'm just being really quick. Obviously you'll be a bit more precise if you're placing them for an actual scenery. But nice and quick, just to show you how it is. Now this has sort of built-in ground illumination. As I say, you can make that spot bigger. You don't have to have it this size. It can be bigger, smaller, whatever you want it to be. Personally, I would recommend bigger, but the bigger you make it, keep in mind, if it crosses over, you're going to get flickering. Like, you probably get a little bit of flickering. Let's turn that off. Pop that into full screen. Well, not full screen, but bigger. And we'll come back here, and as you can see, the further back we move, the ramp lights tend to turn off. So, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, looking at them like that, it doesn't look that amazing. So, let's get the aircraft on the ground. Let's go forward. Hate how jittery Flight Sim is when I'm recording the screen. Okay, now if we look here, go up a bit, up a bit, up a bit. No, back a bit, forward a bit, back a bit. Oh, for God's sake. There we are. That'll do fine. Now, if we look here, you can see that the tire is slightly sunk into that, but you can't really tell too much. I mean, it is just above the ground, so obviously, there we go. Look at that. You can see it now. So it's just above the ground, but if you're happy to deal with that, then that's fine. If you're using an aircraft that actually has lights that illuminate the ground, you're going to notice that the lights shine either A, directly under, or directly over, depending on how far away you are from the light source itself. If we look further this way, and we had our light shining, obviously these get higher as you go further away. So yeah, but yeah, sort of moral of the story. I've just made this to show you. It's not quite perfect. Obviously, the light spot is way too small for my liking. Anyway, I don't know if you like that kind of thing. That'd probably be alright for a street light, really. But yeah, sort of moral of this story is pick and choose as you would. Test it, test it, test it. And we're going to do exactly the same job now. We're going to test things, and we're going to try and make a really nice looking ramp light that illuminates a very large portion of the ground, probably a good 100 meter, 200 meter squared, maybe bigger. So that's the ramp lights for you. You don't have to use the bloom like I've done, and if the bloom was disabled, it'd still look okay in my opinion. Let's see what we can do. Turn the bloom off. Yeah, it still looks alright. But obviously this the spot on the ground needs to be bigger in my opinion. Anyway, my name is Mark from Soarfly Concepts. Now, if you did like this tutorial, hit the like button for me, and if you want to see more, by all means do subscribe. This channel is nearly at 400 subscribers, and I am so pleased about that. 400, it sounds like nothing compared to Markiplier, you know, approaching, what, 19 million subscribers, and I never expect to get that far ahead, but you know, the 400, well, the nearly 400 of you that have subscribed to my channel, I can't thank you enough. You are the best. So yeah, if you did like it, remember to leave a like for me. by all means do comment below. I'm happy to help out anyone who needs a hand. And these lights will be available for download via the website. Not these particular ones. I'm going to edit the light spot and make them bigger. I'll make them look good. There'll be a couple of different versions. There'll be the sodium ones that I've got here, and there'll be a couple of different ones as well. So some white light, some bluey light, and whatnot. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got to say. So by all means, do like it. Do subscribe if you are new. And I will see you guys in the next video, I suppose. Yeah. I've seen that before, but what is that? Oh, that's trippy. Oh god, that is trippy. That is trippy. That is trippy. That is... Nope. Look at the floor.